Good morning, Indy fans. It's Friday the 5th of February 2021 and it's time for Boris's Best of British Bulletin, episode 29, with me, DaviePHD. Strap yourselves in, folks. Get a stiff drink or maybe even some Valium. In Scots Unionist news, Scots Tory branch office supervisor DrossMP took to Facebook Live on Monday to deliver a 15-minute speech lecturing Nicola Sturgeon on why she should not be focused on party politics because there's a pandemic to manage. But do you know what, folks? DrossMP, just for once, was right. I mean, even a stopped clock's right twice a day. But DrossMP has a short memory, as his Deputy Branch Office Supervisor, Baroness Dido F MSP, asked the Scottish Government to publish some figures last week. But the actual bosses in London said we couldn't, so we took them down. Then Baroness Davison attacked us about the stuff we were unable to publish figures about, quoting the figures we weren't allowed to discuss. And when we threatened to publish said figures on retaliation, DrossMP and his London bosses had a hissy fit. That was a lot of time wasted on party politics, DrossMP, and it wasn't our doing. As if wasting all that time wasn't enough, DrossMP then challenged Nicola Sturgeon to a debate this month on Scotland's future. Keep in mind that this isn't a referendum that his actual party leader says isn't happening, and one in which he says, if it happens without his boss's blessing, that he'll take no part in. Ordinarily, I would love to see this debate, as I reckon she'd rip off his head and shit down his neck. But these things take time, and negotiations on formats, venues, broadcasters, etc. So, DrossMP spent the first 14 minutes of his absolute waffle telling Nicola Sturgeon to ignore party politics and focus solely on the pandemic. And the last minute, challenging Nicola Sturgeon to a debate with him at a time when she has a country to run, an election to prepare for, a party to run, a parliamentary inquiry to take part in, and as if all that wasn't enough, a fucking pandemic to manage which he keeps telling her she should be 100% focused on. As my old grandma used to say, he canna decide whether to shite or spew. In UK Unionist news, well, as we know, the UK government's management of the pandemic hasn't gone at all well. Don't let them fool you with a nice slick vaccine rollout. All is well, because it bloody well isn't. In fact, overall it's gone so badly that some UK residents of Wuhan, China, who were evacuated by the UK government, actually wish they'd never left. When Matt Raw was given an instruction to get out of Wuhan, he took the advice seriously. Exactly 1 year on, he wishes he'd never got on that flight back to the UK. Along with his wife and his mother, Matt from Cheshire was among 83 Britons evacuated from the Chinese city on the 31st of January last year. Mr. Raw says he got the news at 4 AM and they quickly threw some things in a suitcase and headed for the airport. But he says he now wishes he'd never got on that flight. They lied to us, he says of the UK's authority. We're being told, get out of Wuhan, come back to England, you'll be safe here. We would have been safer and much more free if we'd stayed in China. They tackled it short and sharp, locked down the cities, and it was a right thing to do. Yep, you heard that right. It is safer to be at the very epicentre of this global pandemic than it is to be here in the UK. How would that look printed on the side of a fucking campaign bus? In Brexit news, well, it's been a whole month since the end of the transition period, and how's it going so far? Borders? There's been far less cross-border EU trade than normal. Traffic is moving, more slowly, even though there was much less of it. French authorities say the flow of lorries was about 70% of normal levels, but more than half were returning from the UK empty in order to avoid new border bureaucracy. That in turn means there are much less UK exports. Food. There have been problems in some cases. The food is either not leaving the places in the UK where it's produced or rotting at border posts for several days. In business, some UK firms that export to the UK say they're being encouraged by the UK government to set up subsidiaries in the EU to avoid disruption. But that of course takes jobs, investment and tax income out of the UK altogether. Finance. One early impact felt in the city was that about £5.3 billion, or €6 billion, of daily trade in euro-dominated shares left London in early January for new trading platforms in Paris and Amsterdam. It's highly unlikely to return, ever. In Northern Ireland, most goods require a customs declaration when they go from the UK to Northern Ireland. Amazon stopped alcohol deliveries and John Lewis suspended all its deliveries there. There was disruption to fresh produce reaching supermarket shelves in January. New rules on travelling with pets also created new barriers for assistance dog owners who travel between the UK and Northern Ireland. Fishing? Well, the fish market in my hometown of Peterhead is generally operating about 40% of its capacity. Pre-Brexit, it was generally about 80% every day, and now the EU has informed us that live shellfish exports will be banned indefinitely. So, in short, fishing, fucked, borders, still crap, exports, down, financial share trading, down, Northern Ireland getting scurvy and rickets, and the UK government encouraging firms to set up shop in Europe to avoid the very bellendry that they fucking well caused. Michael Gove did say that there'll be a few bumps in the road, but what the colossal bellend neglected to say is that those bumps would be vertical, a mile high and the full width of the fucking road, with no way over, around or through them. So big are the bumps in the road that Northern Ireland Protocol that Gove has had to ask for a grace period until 2023 to flatten them out. So overall, Brexit is going as well as expected, i.e. a shit show. We have transitioned from frictionless trade to tradeless friction. If anybody actually has a Brexit positive, please let me know in the comments. In UK Labour Party news, it seems that they have given up on Scotland. A leaked internal strategy review document has shown that Labour UK will focus on flags and patriotism. Now this change of tack is not hypocritical at all, especially given that Sir Keir Starmer used to propose abolishing the monarchy, but was later happy to accept a fucking knighthood from them. But not everyone is pleased. Clive Lewis, one of Labour's leading ethnic minority MPs, said, "The Tory party has absorbed UKIP, and now Labour appears to be absorbing the language and symbols of the Tory party." Lewis served as a soldier in Afghanistan, but decried his party's flag waving. It's not patriotism, it's fatherlandism. There's a better way to build social cohesion than moving down the nativist track of the far right. So, is this the new patriotic Sir Keir Starmer we can all expect to see on the campaign trail? That's going to be a big vote winner, that is, especially in Scotland, where jingoistic, Union Jack-waving politicians go down as smoothly as a pint of cold vomit. It seems that Scottish Labour have also given up by placing all their heavy hitters, including their departing leader and the two hoping to succeed him, onto their regional lists, as their best hope of squeezing them back into Holyrood in 2021. Yes, it looks like they won't win a single constituency seat. In other news, there's been pressure to explain why the UK government has not introduced stricter measures at our borders. On this subject, Transport Secretary Grant Shapps said, "Because we are an island nation, unlike Australia or something, which is an entire continent." So, just for Grant Shapps, the definition of an island is a piece of land surrounded by water. UK, definitely an island. Australia, definitely an island. And just for Grant Shapps again, confirmed COVID cases in Australia, 28,824. That's 1 in 893. In the UK, 3,852,627, or 1 in 18. Deaths in Australia, 909, or 1 in 28,319. In the UK, 108,004. That's 1 in 628. So folks, in the UK you are 50 times more likely to catch COVID than in Australia, and 45 times more likely to die from it. But I'm sure that's not at all connected to the kind of poor management that let 20 million people enter the UK in the first 93 days of the pandemic without as much as a temperature check. but in the new post-Brexit transition world means it takes 8 days to send carrots from the United Kingdom to Northern Ireland. So I'd respectfully suggest to Grant Sharp's MP that he's talking bollocks, and that maybe he should organise a Zoom call with Matt, Rishi and Boris to look at that Australian example, as I think they might learn something. Maybe even really basic stuff like the definition of the words island and quarantine. Finally, it's been a while since we heard from Baroness Dido fucking Harding, the Tory peer and spouse of the government's anti-corruption champion, John Penrose MP. Whilst abject failure at your job is enough for most of us to get the sack, Baroness Dido fucking Harding has been promoted upwards from her former role running England's track and trace system to running the National Institute for Health Protection. Baroness fucking Harding said this week, "We've seen the virus mutate. We've seen a new variant emerge, which is something none of us were able to predict." Of course, Baroness Dido fucking Harding also said back in September, "I don't think anybody was expecting to see the really sizable increase in demand that we've seen over the last few weeks." She was, of course, referring to her failure to predict the increase in demand for testing and tracing in September last year when schools went back and many people returned to work. Now, I'm no Jedi Knight, but even I had the precognition to know what would happen. Even I know that viruses mutate because I need a flu jab every fucking year. And even I know that when snotty school kids get back together, infection rates go up. To be fair, you don't need to be Yoda to figure that one out. Just a parent. Hang on. Baroness Dido fucking Harding is a parent. Now I ask you, is someone who doesn't know this stuff or can't make an educated guess at these things really the best person to be running this programme? I only ask because she's overseen a programme that has cost the country the equivalent of 20 grand a day since the end of the Bronze Age. Well, that was 3,200 years ago, for a bit of context. I mean, 22 billion quid. Surely that was enough for her to buy even one copy of the Ladybird Book of Viruses and Germs. It's enough to make you chew your own foot off, isn't it? You know, at this rate, people smuggling gangs are going to spring up in Kent so that British people can make a break for it across the Channel to France. But that's just 1 week. Just one more painfully normal, painfully painful week in Tory Britain. So Scotland, are you yes yet? DaviePHD.